Hey everybody, this is us for Listed on Gaming with episode 6, match number 2, with Boros Burn here in Modern. This particular time we're playing a Varieties list, Natan Lord. This is basically a Boros version of the Rakdos lists that have been running around. Instead of running Bump in the Night, we're running Boros Charm. We've got the Eidolons to the sideboard, along with the Skull Cracks. No Lightning Helixes in this list. We are running 3 copies of Shard Volley and 2 copies of Grim Lavamancer, in addition to all of the Light Up the Stages and Skewer the Critics to trigger Spectacle pretty easily. Beyond that, this is your typical Boros list: Lava Spike, Lightning Bolt, Searing Blaze, Rift Bolt, along with Swift Spear and Goblin Guide, along with your Grim Lavamancers in the main deck. Sideboard, you got some Rest in Pieces for graveyard decks, Skull Crack for the type of life gain. Also, when you need to bring in more instant spells, you get something like Control. Eidolon the Great Revel, usually a main deckable card, but in this particular list he chose to sideboard it. So bringing it against anything with a bunch of cheap spells, anything from Is It Phoenix to Death Shadow to Control decks to Storm. Searing Blood for the creature matchups, and then Cinder Vines for any type of opponents who are very heavy on spells or who have enchantments or artifacts you want to deal with. Anything from Leyline of Sanctity and Chalice of the Void, all the way up to playing against Hardened Scales or Boggles and such. So very multifaceted card. Does require you to run green source in your mana base, which I'm not always a fan of, but we're continuing to try out the card here in this version. And with that being said, if you like what you're seeing on the channel, please consider giving us a subscribe, giving us a thumbs up, and leaving a constructive comment down below. Alright, let's hop into a match. Once again, as I mentioned earlier, I'm doing a 2-man queues with this. We will be getting back to leagues here shortly, but I'm doing 2-man queues because this is normally something that I would play on a stream, when I'm playing somebody else's deck list and not something I personally chose myself. I like to do 2-man queues or practice rooms to get a feel for the deck. There's some card additions I'm not too thrilled with. I'm not a huge fan of Shard Volley, but it is kind of a necessary evil when you're trying to lower the curve in these Boros lists, and 1 or 2 is usually fine. Multiple copies of Grim Lavamancer are fine as well. It's a format where you're giving up some amount of utility with your Lightning Helixes to be able to kill creatures, so having another card that can target and deal with creature matchups is pretty nice. Beyond that, it's a Boros burn list. We are a little bit more vulnerable to Chalice of the Void, as we found out in round number 1. We played against that mono-white Eldrazi and Taxes list that was playing Gemstone, Cavern, as well as Simian Spirit Guide. So we're on the play. Wow, this hand is an example of how these spectacle hands can get really awkward. Like, we have Bolt, but we can't really cast Bolt on one. So we pretty much have to go like Bolt into Light Up the Stage here. See what our opponent plays out here. Tron. This is kind of a hand where we're going to get punished for the particular kind of hand we kept. And to grab Sacred Foundry there, I guess in the end it really doesn't matter. This isn't a matchup where you're winning by small margins. This is one of those hands where you're either... Alright, 2 lands. I'm not terribly happy to see that, but at the same time it's not terrible either. Especially if our opponent manages to assemble turn 3 Tron. The burn hands tend to have a little bit of a problem getting there against turn 3 Tron. Or not burn. I shouldn't say the burn hands. The burn spell only hands have problems killing Tron before it's relevant, especially when we basically have drawn 2 blanks now. These Searing Blazes are both blanks for the most part in the matchup. Tower, so they have Tron this turn. Usually too much they can assemble here. Relic, sure. Relic and Pop Relic. Which does suck if we happen to draw a Lavamancer here. Yep, O-Stone, that's fine. Boros Charm's a live draw to kill them, but these Searing Blazes are pretty garbo. They could Karn and take us off a land, which would be a problem with this hand. Yep, Wormcoil Engine gives us one turn exactly to draw. Yep, that's pretty well game here. It's one of the dangers of keeping that particular hand. So we bring in the Pass, bring in the Cinder Vines, bring in the Skull Cracks, get down these 4 very awful copies of Searing Blaze, and Lavamancer is not fantastic, but I don't know that it's terrible here. We'll go down 1 lay up the stage and 1 copy of Shard Volley. Tron's usually a matchup that's pretty favorable, but you can certainly lose. I don't like keeping a 4-land hand, but anything that's got Goblin God and lay up the stage I think is probably worth keeping here. Because Goblin God's almost guaranteed to get in 4 to 6 damage in this matchup, so... Lavamancer is not a terrible play here. Unfortunately, we'll not be able to deploy that Rift Bolt because of the nature of how things work. Can't suspend Rift Bolt from exile. Can only suspend it from your hand, but still a reasonable hand, particularly against turn 4 Tron. So... supposed to shoot? I guess I'm just supposed to damage here directly. Stone. Cast Boros Charm. Suspend Rift Bolts. Opponent will have turn 4 Tron, but I think they're just going to be dead. Yep. Turn 4 kill, doing what Burn does. Now we gotta win game number 4 on the or game number 4. Game number 3 on the draw here, which is not always the easiest task in this matchup. Especially when they're bringing in, you know, Thought-Knot Seers, they're bringing in Thrag Tusks, so if they're able to assemble like a turn 3 Tron, I don't think... Yeah, Eidolon's... We didn't bring Eidolon in on the play, it's not going to be good on the draw, so... Path and Cinder Vines, at least, yeah, this hand's unkeepable. The fact that they have no plays on 1 generally means they have turn 3 Tron naturally. Which means either Worm Coil or Karn coming down next turn, probably. Some ways we almost want it to be Worm Coil Engine. Oh, wow. Kept the I have most of Tron and didn't quite get their hand? Huh. So what's more valuable here? Putting them, because they could put them to... I should have done the math before combat here. Cost myself at least a point of damage. Gives me a mathematical out to Worm Coil Engine. Feels like a Worm Coil Engine. It is a Worm Coil Engine. Opponents realizing this Sylvan Scrying may cost them a point of life. So 6. Okay, we managed to get them lethal through a Worm Coil Engine. Despite my punt last turn, the opponent should be at 7. So... my opponent block here. Doesn't really matter which one you block, friend. And Boros Charm for the win. Alright, so despite a rough opening in Game 1, we were able to come back and get the win. So one of the key things about when you learn Burn is a lot of people just think it's Lava Spike, Lava Spike, Lava Spike, Lightning Bolt to the face. But a lot of times your most important draws are being able to convert your creatures into 4 to plus damage and then winning from there. And Tron is one of those matchups where it's a very good example of why your creatures are very important in a lot of matchups, particularly Swiftspear and Goblin Guide. Being able to convert those extra 2, 4 points of damage, you know, out of your cards as opposed to just 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3 other than Boros Charm. So, very important lesson with Burn is you need to understand that your creatures are usually more valuable overall than most other Burn spells, but there are obviously situations where, you know, like against removal heavy decks, your creatures aren't guaranteed to connect for damage, so, you know, there's pluses and minuses with both styles. So keep that in mind when you're playing your Burn deck, that creatures are usually worth their weight in gold, but against removal heavy decks, they're kind of garbo, other than, you know, being able to hit in for that first turn, usually without them getting killed, and then Eidolon obviously usually being at least worth 2 damage. But, you know, Eidolon's in the sideboard, that's an idea I've toyed with before, so I certainly enjoy, you know, getting a look at a list that's not prioritizing Eidolon. And I think the last time out we played the Rakdos list, the Eidolon list. The Eidolon actually locked us out in a game that we should have won otherwise. So, Eidolon's certainly a risky venture when you're trying to chain through your deck with Light Up the Stage. So, I applaud Nathan for turning the Eidolons to the sideboard. I think that might be correct in a build where you're trying to cast both Light Up the Stage and Skewer the Critics relatively reasonably. I'm going to play a couple more matches, but I do have one or two maybe suggestions for the list, but we'll get into that once the matches are done. But this has been Dust for Us on Gaming. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.